The Rosewood Conservatory shimmered beneath 1,000 golden lanterns, each one casting warm light across silk-draped tables and opulent sprays of winter roses. Laughter rang like crystal bells, swirling through the air with the notes of a lively country reel. It was a night crafted for joy, and yet somehow joy had overlooked Miss Allowan Hartwell entirely. She stood near a marble pillar half hidden behind cascading garlands, her gloved hands clasped tightly at her waist as she watched her younger sister Lisbeth glide across the dance floor in bridal white. Lisbeth's beauty was a thing their mother often declared heaven's own handiwork, while Elowen, 3 years older and far too often forgotten, was spoken of only in polite disclaimers and sighs. "Such a fortunate girl, Lady Lisbeth," whispered a passing matron, her voice dipped in honeyed admiration. "And her sister, what is her name again?" "Miss Hartwell," her companion replied, lowering her voice in faux discretion. "The elder one, the quiet one. Poor creature, left on the shelf before her time." The words pricked, soft as pins and twice as deep. Elowen lowered her gaze, blinking rapidly when a sudden sting threatened her composure. The orchestra swept into a brighter melody as the bride and groom turned in perfect synchrony, Lisbeth's laughter ringing above the music like a triumphant bell. Her diamonds caught the light, scattering brilliance across the floor, and none of it touched Elowen in her shadowed corner. "Do stop lingering in the background, Elowen," her mother hissed as she sidled past. "It gives the impression you are sulking. Collect Lisbeth's shawl at once. She may need it after the next waltz." "Yes, mother," Elowen murmured, her voice as faint as a breath lost in the music. She picked her way toward the antechamber, head bowed, only to pause when a sudden hush rippled through the ballroom. Conversations faltered, fans stilled. Even the musicians' bows hesitated upon their strings. The Duke of Ravensbury had arrived. He stood in the arched doorway, a commanding figure carved in shadow and midnight. His presence alone seemed to reorder the very air, demanding attention without uttering a word. Broad-shouldered, impeccably tailored, and marked by a certain austere elegance, he surveyed the room with a cool discernment reserved for men accustomed to being obeyed. And then, unexpectedly, impossibly, his gaze found her. Allowen froze. For a breathless moment, she felt exposed. As if he had peeled away every layer of invisibility she had worn for years. His eyes, stern yet startlingly gentle, rested on her with an intensity she was wholly unprepared to bear. He inclined his head, barely, deliberately. Her heart stuttered. Before she could recover, her mother swept into view, all fluttering fan and strained smiles. "Your Grace, what a tremendous surprise. You must come greet the bride, my younger daughter. She is simply radiant this evening." "Undoubtedly," the Duke replied, though his gaze did not follow Lisbeth's dancing figure. Instead, he lifted a gloved hand, indicating the quiet, pale girl pressed against the pillar. "And yet it is the elder Miss Hartwell whom I would meet first, if you would be so obliging." A stunned silence rippled through their small circle. Elowen felt every gaze swing toward her. Sharp and assessing, her mother faltered. "Elowen? Why ever would you wish? She is only Elowen Hartwell," he repeated, stepping toward her, his voice low and unmistakably deliberate. "Has been quite overlooked tonight. I believe it is time that changed." Elowen's breath caught, soft and fragile, like the first note of a hymn. Then the Duke extended his hand. "Miss Hartwell, may I have this dance?" The ballroom seemed to still, the music fading into a distant hum. Elowen hesitated, fear and longing warring behind her eyes, until one warm tear escaped, betraying the ache she had tried so hard to conceal. The Duke's voice softened. "Not tonight, my dear," he murmured. "Tonight you will not hide your tears. Tonight the world will see you." Her trembling hand slipped into his, and as he led her onto the gleaming floor, past her shocked mother, past Lisbeth's frozen smile, past the murmuring crowd, Elowen felt the strange, breath-stealing certainty that nothing in her life would ever be the same again. A hush fell as the Duke guided Elowen onto the polished oak floor. Conversations dimmed, eyes widened, and fans fluttered like startled birds. No one expected her, the quiet sister, the invisible one, to be escorted into the spotlight by the most sought-after Duke in the kingdom. Elowen's pulse thudded at her throat, so loud she feared he might hear it. She had been overlooked for so long that recognition felt like a foreign cloak, beautiful but ill-fitting. The Duke stopped before her, his gloved hand still holding hers, steady and secure. "Miss Hartwell," he murmured, bowing low enough to respect her, yet not so low as to embarrass her. "If at any point you wish to stop, you need only say the word." Her breath trembled. "Your Grace, why me?" A faint smile ghosted across his lips, there and gone like a passing shadow. "Because you looked as though you have spent years carrying storms alone." Her eyes widened. He continued softly. "And because I cannot abide watching a woman drown quietly in a room full of people who pretend not to see." Before she could form a reply, the orchestra shifted into a tender waltz, slow, graceful, almost mournful. The Duke placed his hand lightly at her waist, guiding her into the first step with the ease of a man completely certain of his purpose. Elowen followed, hesitant at first. Then slowly, miraculously, she found the rhythm. They glided across the floor, her pale gown sweeping like moonlight against the Duke's dark attire. Whispers followed them like a living wind. "Why her? What is his interest? The elder daughter? Impossible. He must be mistaken. No, look at how he watches her." Elowen heard every word. Each one struck her, sharp and cold. But the Duke tightened his hold, drawing her a fraction closer, not improper but protective. "Do not listen," he murmured near her temple. "They speak from envy, not truth." Tears gathered again, but this time they didn't fall. She inhaled, steadying herself. "You do not know what they say of me." He guided her through a slow turn, his voice low. "I know precisely what they say." His jaw tightened. "And none of it aligns with what I see." Her heart fluttered painfully. "And what do you see, Your Grace?" He leaned in, his breath brushing her ear, not intimate, but devastatingly sincere. "A woman they have overlooked so long, they have forgotten to fear what she could become." The world blurred. Her steps faltered, just slightly, but he caught her effortlessly, steadying her again. "May I confess something, Miss Hartwell?" he asked quietly. She nodded, unable to speak. "I noticed you before I even crossed the threshold." Elowen blinked. "Me?" "Yes," he said simply. "Among all the glittering jewels, all the noise, all the pretense, your sadness was the only honest thing in the room." Her throat tightened painfully. The music swelled around them, sweeping them into another turn. For the first time that night, Elowen's feet felt light, as though she were not being carried across the floor, but lifted by something she had not known in years. Being seen, being chosen, being valued. But just as her heart dared to believe in this strange miracle, a sharp voice sliced through the air. "Elowen!" Her mother's call froze her mid-step. The Duke's arm stiffened. They turned slowly, unwillingly, toward Lady Hartwell, storming onto the dance floor, her expression a mask of embarrassment and fury. "Your Grace," she said breathlessly, "my daughter is unwell. You must release her at once. She is not accustomed to such attention." The crowd gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others leaned closer, hungry for scandal. Elowen felt her cheeks burn, not from shame, but from the cruel reminder that she had always been an inconvenience to her own family. The Duke didn't release her. He stood straighter, broader, his hand remaining firmly at her waist. "With respect, Lady Hartwell," he said, his voice suddenly cold enough to silence the entire hall, "Miss Hartwell is far more resilient than you presume." Her mother's eyes widened, caught between shock and outrage. "But—" he cut her off with a single authoritative lift of his chin. "And she is dancing with me." Gasps erupted, but Elowen stared at him as if seeing him anew. This man who had stepped into her shadows without hesitation. Her mother's lips trembled before she forced them into a tight smile. Very well, Your Grace. But do remember, Lisbeth is the bride tonight. The celebration is hers. The Duke's reply came soft, too controlled. And yet it is your elder daughter who is shining. Lady Hartwell stiffened as though struck. The Duke turned back to Elowin. Shall we continue? Her voice whispered out, barely more than a breath. Yes, please. And as he drew her once more into the waltz, a realization washed over her with undeniable clarity. This night was no longer about her sister's wedding. It was about the moment she was finally seen, and the man who dared to see her. When the music ended, applause rippled through the hall, soft at first, then louder, fuller, almost disbelieving, as though the very walls could not comprehend what they had just witnessed. Elowin froze, breath trembling, as the Duke bowed before her with quiet reverence. She curtsied, but her knees wavered under the weight of 100 eyes. Heat climbed into her cheeks again, not from humiliation this time, but from the shocking awareness that, for the first time in years, she mattered. The Duke extended his arm. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. And yet, it was the gentlest offer anyone had ever given her. Elowin hesitated, not because she feared him, but because she feared what her family would do if she obeyed him. Still, her hand moved on its own, light as a breath, resting on his offered arm. A single whisper swept through the hall. She's leaving with him. Alone? But the Duke ignored every pair of widening eyes as he guided her through the clusters of guests, his posture shielding her from the sharpest looks, the cruelest whispers. They stepped into a quieter corridor lined with candlelit sconces and portraits of stern ancestors. The air here was cooler, softer, away from the prying eyes of the ballroom. Elowin finally exhaled. You shouldn't have defended me, she whispered. My mother will never forgive it. He turned to her. If your mother takes offense at her daughter being treated with dignity, that is no failing of yours. Elowin lowered her gaze. You don't understand. Then help me understand, he said softly. Her heart tightened, because no one had ever asked her that before. Not her parents, not her sister, not anyone. She looked down at her hands clasped tightly in front of her. My family, they've never expected anything of me. Not beauty, not brilliance, not charm, nothing. He studied her quietly, too quietly. She forced a small, brittle smile. Tonight was supposed to be perfect for Lisbeth. She is everything I'm not, everything a daughter is meant to be. The Duke's jaw flexed. Elowin. He rarely used first names. Hearing it from him felt like a warm breeze in winter. Tell me something. When did you decide that their expectations define your worth? Her chest tightened painfully. It isn't a decision. It's simply truth. A shadow crossed his expression, dark, furious, but not at her. You're wrong, he said, voice low. And I would very much like to show you how wrong. She blinked. Why? He held her gaze, unyielding. Because when I saw you standing in that ballroom, trying to vanish into the wall, apologizing even for breathing, I recognized something. What? She whispered. Myself, he said. Elowin's breath caught. He stepped closer, not improper but devastatingly sincere. I know what it is to be overlooked, he continued, to be valued only for what others want from you, to be praised publicly but dismissed privately, to be seen as a title, a function, a name, never a person. His voice was steady, but the pain beneath it was unmistakable. Elowin swallowed hard. I didn't expect someone like you to understand. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. Great titles do not shield one from great loneliness. Silence stretched between them, soft, fragile, alive. Then he asked quietly, May I show you something? Her brow furrowed. What is it? He offered his hand again. A truth. She hesitated. Her entire life had taught her to fear the unknown. But something in his eyes, a promise, a warmth, a certainty. She placed her hand in his. He led her through a side door, down a short stone staircase, and into the garden behind the estate. Winter roses, dusted with frost, glimmered beneath lantern light. A gentle wind rustled the leaves. He stopped near a tall hedge and reached into his coat, pulling out a silver pocket watch. He pressed a small hidden latch. A soft click. The entire hedge shifted, revealing a narrow archway, hidden from ordinary guests. Eloin gasped. "What is this?" "A sanctuary." His voice softened. "One I show to no one." Her heart stuttered. "Why me?" He stepped into the archway, then turned and extended his hand once more. "Because you look like someone who has never been offered a sanctuary," he said, "and tonight you deserve one." Her breath trembled. With a courage she did not know she possessed, she slipped her hand into his and stepped through the archway with him. On the other side was a small enclosed garden, hidden entirely from view. A fountain trickled softly at the center, surrounded by stone benches and blooming winter jasmine. It was beautiful, quiet, safe. Eloin's eyes glistened. "Do you come here often?" she asked softly. "Only when I need to breathe," he said. Then with gentle honesty, "I thought perhaps you needed to breathe too." She looked up at him, emotions thick in her throat. "Why are you being so kind to me?" His expression softened, even warmed. "Eloin," he murmured, "kindness is not a performance. It is recognition, and I recognized your loneliness long before I recognized your beauty." Her breath faltered. "My beauty? You may not see it," he whispered, "but I do." Her eyes widened, shimmering in the lantern glow. He stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wished. She didn't. "Tell me," he said quietly, "has no one ever told you what you deserve?" She shook her head, a tiny, painful movement. He exhaled as though that answer wounded him. "Then allow me to begin." But before he could speak another word, footsteps echoed, loud, rushed, breathless. "Eloin!" A familiar voice hissed. Eloin turned, startled, as her sister Lisbeth stepped through the archway, her wedding gown rustling behind her, eyes blazing with something sharper than jealousy. "Eloin," Lisbeth snapped, "Mother is furious. And you?" Her glare swung to the Duke, sharp as a dagger. "Stay away from my sister." The Duke straightened, cold authority sweeping back over him like a mantle. "Lady Lisbeth," he said evenly, "you forget yourself." "No," she hissed. "It is you who forgets your place." Eloin gasped. "Lisbeth." Lisbeth ignored her. "Do not pretend you seek her attention for noble reasons, your grace. Men like you never do." The Duke's expression stilled, dangerously so. "Eloin," Lisbeth continued, her voice trembling with poisonous certainty, "you must leave him now, for your own good." The Duke took a step forward. "No," he said, voice icy calm. "She is safer with me than she will ever be with you." Lisbeth's eyes widened, rage and fear flickering there. "You don't understand, your grace," she whispered. "You have no idea what she truly is." Eloin froze. Her world tilted. "What? What I am," she whispered. Her sister swallowed, hard. "There is a secret," Lisbeth said shakily, "about you. One mother swore never to reveal." The Duke stiffened. "Eloin, do not listen." But the damage was already done. Eloin's heart hammered as she stared at her sister. "What secret?" she whispered. Lisbeth glanced between them, breathing hard. Then she said the words that shattered the night. "Eloin, you were never meant to be part of this family." The garden fell utterly still. Even the winter wind seemed to freeze, holding its breath. Eloin stared at her sister, her pulse roaring, her throat tightening, her hands trembling at her sides. "What? What do you mean I was never meant to be part of this family?" Lisbeth's eyes flashed with panic, but it wasn't apology. It was fear, and something uglier, something long buried. "Eloin," the Duke said softly, stepping closer, but she lifted a hand, stopping him. Her voice came out thin. "Lisbeth, tell me." Her sister looked away, clasping her hands. "I shouldn't have said it." But you did, Elowen whispered. Why? Lisbeth swallowed tightly. Because Mother said if you ever discovered the truth, everything would fall apart. Elowen, the Duke murmured again, you don't owe her this pain. Not tonight. But she shook her head. She had to know. Lisbeth, tell me. Lisbeth's shoulders sagged. The truth is, you're not fully ours. Elowen blinked. Not yours? You're not truly a Davenhall, Lisbeth blurted, voice cracking. Not by blood. The world spun. The Duke exhaled sharply, fury simmering behind his controlled expression. Your mother should have told her, he said tightly, not hurled it like a weapon. Lisbeth ignored him, wringing her hands. Mother feared what people would say if they knew. Knew what? Elowen whispered, voice breaking under the weight of a lifetime of not belonging, suddenly making too much sense. That you are... Lisbeth hesitated. Elowen, the Duke warned again, quietly urgent, but it was too late. That you are adopted, Lisbeth finished. Mother found you as an infant, barely days old. Silence, the kind that tears the soul. Elowen's breath hitched. Adopted? Her entire body felt weightless, as though she might drift out of herself. Lisbeth nodded weakly. She raised you as her own. But she always feared what other families would whisper. So we, Mother and I, were told to never speak of it. We, Mother and I. Her chest tightened painfully. So you've always known? Elowen whispered. Lisbeth nodded, biting her lip. Yes. And you never told me. Lisbeth flinched. Mother said your place in society was fragile. She said telling you would ruin everything. Elowen let out a breath that felt like it cracked through her ribs. Fragile. Ruined. Unwanted. Maybe that was why every compliment felt like charity. Why every smile from her parents felt forced. Why she never fit into the silhouette of the perfect daughter they wanted. Why tell her now? The Duke demanded, stepping forward, voice edged with cold steel. Lisbeth stumbled backward. Because she shouldn't be near someone like you. The Duke's eyes hardened. Someone like me? Powerful, Lisbeth hissed. Influential. The kind of man who could destroy her without meaning to. And you think hiding the truth protects her? He shot back. It protects all of us, she cried. Elowen squeezed her eyes shut, her heart fracturing in a dozen directions. She felt like she was falling. Everything she believed about herself, her family, her identity, splintering. Why was I taken in? Elowen whispered. Lisbeth looked away. Mother said it was charity. She said she didn't want the scandal of an abandoned child placed on our doorstep, so she brought you inside. Scandal? Charity? Elowen's stomach twisted. And father? She asked. Lisbeth hesitated. That part is worse. The Duke stepped between them, blocking Lisbeth with a single cold, lethal glare. That is enough. Lisbeth went rigid. This is not your truth to reveal, he growled. And she deserves to hear it from the right person, at the right time, not in a moment of jealousy and spite. Lisbeth gasped. Jealousy? You think I'm jealous of her? He didn't blink. Yes. Elowen stared between them, throat tight. The Duke's voice softened as he turned to her. Elowen, you are not defined by blood or its absence. But she shook her head, stepping away from both of them. I need to breathe, she whispered. She ran a hand through her hair, tears burning in her eyes. Elowen, wait, Lisbeth called. But Elowen stepped back, her voice trembling but firm. No, not from you. Not now. Lisbeth froze. The Duke took a slow step toward Elowen. Let me help you. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with hurt, disbelief, and some sudden, painful clarity. You knew, she whispered. The Duke's breath caught. What? You knew something, she said. I could hear it in your voice. The way you tried to stop her. His jaw tightened. Not the full truth, he said quietly. But I knew there was a history, whispers, Rumors that your family carried a burden they refused to acknowledge. And you didn't tell me. Elowen, she backed up again, shaking. I don't blame you, she whispered. I need a moment. He didn't touch her, didn't push, didn't try to force an answer. He simply bowed his head with aching gentleness. Take the moment, he said softly. I will be here when you're ready. Her breath trembled. And then, her voice breaking, she asked the question that would change the entire course of the night. If my family is not my own, then who am I? The Duke met her gaze with devastating certainty. Elowen, he whispered, that is exactly what I intend to help you discover. But before she could respond, a footman burst through the garden gate, face pale, breath frantic. Your Grace, he cried. There has been an incident inside the ballroom. Your name was invoked. The Duke stiffened. What incident? He demanded. The footman swallowed hard. A man has arrived, claiming he knows the truth about Lady Elowen's birth. Elowen's blood ran cold. Lisbeth gasped. The Duke's expression turned to ice. Who is he? The Duke asked. The footman trembled. He says he is her father. Elowen felt the world tilt again. No, she whispered. That's impossible. But the Duke had already stepped forward, voice low with controlled fury. Elowen, he said, offering his arm with quiet, unshakable authority. You will not face him alone. Her hand trembled, but she placed it in his. The Christmas balls sparkled around them, laughter and clinking glasses echoing off the gilded walls. Yet Amelia felt none of it. Her pulse beat too loudly, her breath too shallow, her thoughts tangled in one name, the Duke of Ravensshire. He was somewhere in this ballroom. And Gerard, the man whose arm she clung to, was watching her with a softness she didn't deserve. Amelia plastered on a smile. You should mingle, she whispered. People want to congratulate the new rising star of Parliament. Gerard laughed softly and brushed a stray curl from her cheek. And leave you alone with hungry aristocrats? Never. But then his attention snapped away, toward the grand staircase. The murmurs began immediately. Gasps, a few stifled squeals. And then, he's back. After a whole year. My goodness, look at him. He's even colder now. Amelia didn't need to look. Every part of her felt him. The air thickened, the music dimmed in her mind, and her body reacted the way it always had around him. Heat blooming, knees weakening, a familiar ache blooming in her chest. Gerard followed the crowd's gaze and exhaled. Well, that explains the sudden frost. The Duke of Ravensshire has arrived. Her stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to return until spring. Plans change. Gerard squeezed her hand. And whatever history lies between the two of you, remember this. You're safe with me tonight. Safe. Safe didn't stop her heart from breaking. Safe didn't erase his memory. Safe didn't stop her from trembling as footsteps approached behind her. Steps she had memorized long ago. Before she could turn, Gerard leaned closer. If he comes near you, just say the word and I'll... You'll what? The voice slid between them like a blade. Deep, smooth, unmistakably dangerous. Amelia froze. Slowly she turned. And there he was. The Duke of Ravensshire. The man who had left her a year ago with no explanation. The man she mourned as if dead. The man whose eyes were now locked on her and filled with a devastation that made her knees threaten to buckle. His gaze traveled from her gown to her trembling fingers, to where her hand rested on Gerard's arm. Then his jaw clenched. Hard. You seem well, he said tightly. Very well, for someone who was supposed to be mine. The orchestra swelled. The ballroom glittered. People watched with open curiosity, but Amelia saw nothing except the storm gathering in his eyes. A storm that promised truth, pain, and a love that had never died. Silence rippled across the ballroom, but inside Amelia's chest, everything thundered. Her heartbeat, her fear, her anger, her memories of him whispering love against her throat. She lifted her chin. The Duke might have shattered her a year ago, but she refused to let him see her break again. "Your Grace," and she said coolly, "you're back earlier than expected." His eyes locked onto hers, sharp, unreadable, far too intense. "Earlier than you expected?" he replied, voice low. "Or earlier than you would have preferred?" Gerard's arm tightened around her slightly, not possessive, but protective, a subtle gesture, a dangerous one. The Duke noticed instantly. His gaze dropped to Gerard's hand, and something dark flickered behind his eyes. Jaw tight, shoulders tense, a storm barely restrained. Gerard cleared his throat. "Your Grace," he said politely, "if you'll excuse us, Miss Amelia and I were just about to—" "No." The Duke stepped forward, blocking their exit with aristocratic precision. "I believe Miss Amelia and I have unfinished matters." Amelia's chest clenched. "No, we don't," she whispered. "Not after you disappeared without explanation." Something in his expression cracked, just for a heartbeat, before his mask slammed back in place. "I had my reasons," he said quietly. "You always do." Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with a year's worth of unanswered pain. Gerard placed a gentle hand on the small of her back. "Amelia, do you want to leave?" She looked up at him, at his kindness, his warmth, and then back at the Duke, at the man whose very presence still set her soul on fire. "I—" Her throat tightened. She couldn't speak. The Duke stepped closer, his voice dangerously soft. "Tell me, Amelia, is this what you truly want?" Her breath hitched. The question felt like hands around her heart. Before she could respond, a sudden voice cut through the tension. "Your Grace! There you are!" Lady Alowan, beaming, elegant, far too comfortable, slipped her hand through the Duke's arm as though it belonged there. A murmur swept through the guests. Some whispered one word. Engaged. Others. Promised. Expected match. Amelia's world tilted. Her stomach dropped. Her fingers went numb. The Duke didn't push Lady Alowan away. He didn't correct the rumors. He didn't deny anything. He only stared at Amelia, with pain, with longing, with something like regret, but not with explanation, not with truth. Gerard immediately sensed the shift. "Amelia," he murmured gently, "let's get you some air." For the first time tonight, she didn't fight it. She let Gerard lead her away, away from the Duke, away from the whispers, away from the fresh wound ripping open inside her chest. Behind her, she didn't see the way the Duke's hand clenched into a fist, or the way Lady Alowan smirked. But she felt one thing clearly. His eyes burning into her back as though watching her walk away was killing him. Cold night air brushed Amelia's cheeks as she stepped onto the moonlit balcony. She inhaled deeply, steadying her trembling heart. Inside, the ballroom hummed with rumors. The Duke is back. He has an arrangement with Lady Alowan. Amelia has moved on. Gerard stood beside her, giving her space, offering warmth without pressure. He watched her for a long moment before speaking softly. "You still love him?" The words were gentle, not an accusation, just truth. Amelia's eyes stung. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "Not after the way he left. Not after a whole year of silence." Gerard stepped closer. "And yet your heart refuses to forget." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, ashamed. "I thought I buried it. I tried. I really tried." Gerard nodded slowly. "I know." She blinked. "You knew." He gave a small smile, bitter, kind, accepting. "Amelia, I'm not blind. I knew from the moment I met you that someone had already claimed the part of your heart you guard most fiercely." She looked away, guilt crushing her. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." He gently lifted her chin. "If he's foolish enough to lose you, that's on him. But tonight, I needed you to hear one thing." Her breath caught as he held her gaze. "You deserve a man who stays." Amelia's chest tightened painfully. And then, the sound of a sharp inhale behind them. Amelia froze. Gerard stiffened. Slowly, they turned. The Duke of Ravensshire stood in the archway, his face ashen, his eyes devastated. He looked like a man who had just watched his world shatter. "How long have you been standing there?" Gerard asked, voice cool. "Long enough," the Duke replied hoarsely. His gaze locked on Amelia, not Gerard, as though she were the only person he could see. Amelia's breath faltered. "Your Grace, you shouldn't have." "Don't call me that," he snapped softly. "Not you." She flinched. He took a step forward, then another. His voice dropped to a raw whisper. "Tell me, is that true?" "Is what true?" she breathed. "That you deserve a man who stays." Amelia's pulse stuttered. I don't understand." He swallowed hard, the muscles in his jaw trembling. "Amelia, I didn't leave you because I wanted to." Gerard scoffed. "Then why did you?" The Duke tore his eyes from Amelia and faced Gerard with icy control. "That," he said, "is between Amelia and me." But Gerard didn't budge. "She deserves the truth." The Duke's nostrils flared. He looked back at Amelia, and this time she saw it clearly. The torment, the regret, the love. "I left," he whispered, "to protect you." Amelia's entire body went still. Gerard turned sharply. "Protect her from what?" The Duke exhaled shakily. "From the danger that follows my name. From the debt my family owed. From the scandal that would have ruined you." Amelia shook her head slowly. "You could have told me." "I couldn't," he said, voice breaking for the first time. "If you knew the truth, you would have followed me." He stepped closer. "Amelia, I never stopped loving you. Not for a moment." Her breath shattered, her knees weakened, because she had waited a whole year, to hear those words, and now her heart didn't know whether to soar or to crumble. Amelia's breath caught, white mist curling in the cold night air as she stared at the Duke, at the man she had loved, mourned, resented, and never truly let go of. His voice, his eyes, his trembling restraint. Everything in him looked like a man begging for one more chance, even if he didn't know how to ask. But Gerard didn't let the moment soften. "Protect her from what, Ravensshire? Your vague nobility? Your dramatic silence?" The Duke's jaw flexed, but surprisingly, he nodded. "She deserves to know." "Very well." He looked at Amelia, only her, as if the entire world balanced on her reaction. "My father died owing a debt to Lord Hawthorne, a dangerous, vindictive man. When he demanded repayment, he didn't want coin." Amelia swallowed hard. "What did he want?" He hesitated. Pain flickered in his eyes. "He wanted you." The ground tilted beneath her. "Me," she whispered. The Duke nodded, voice tight. "He told me if I didn't leave you, if I didn't cut ties completely, he would ruin your family, drag them into a fabricated scandal, destroy your reputation, force you into marriage with his nephew." Amelia felt her legs weaken. Gerard's hand hovered at her elbow, steady but gentle. "You should have told me," she said softly. "I would have faced anything with you." His voice broke. That is exactly what he was counting on. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, as if afraid she would vanish. "I needed him to believe I no longer cared, that you no longer mattered, that there was no leverage left. It was the only way to keep you safe." Amelia felt tears sting her eyes. "So you broke my heart instead." He nodded once, sharp, raw. "If destroying myself meant protecting you, then yes." The pain in his voice carved straight through her chest. Gerard exhaled long and slow, expression shifting. "This Lord Hawthorne, is he still a threat?" The Duke's eyes darkened. "No." There was something final in the way he said it, something deadly. "What did you do?" Amelia whispered. He looked at her for a long moment. Then, "I paid the debt. Every coin, every acre of land he demanded. I sold Ravenhall Manor. I left England to protect you, and to buy the time I needed." Her heart twisted. You lost everything. No, he corrected softly. I lost nothing compared to losing you. The words stole her breath, but as he reached for her hand, hesitant, trembling, another voice echoed from the ballroom doorway. And yet you seem to have returned quite comfortably, Your Grace. Lady Elowen stepped onto the balcony, her smile sharp as glass. Shall I inform the guests that your engagement announcement is delayed? Amelia stiffened. Gerard muttered a curse under his breath. The Duke turned cold. Elowen, leave, now. She laughed lightly. Oh, come now. The entire ton knows we're to be married. Amelia's breath hitched, but not because of Elowen, but because of the Duke's reaction. Pure, unmistakable horror. We are not engaged, he said through clenched teeth. Elowen's smile faltered. Your mother promised. I don't care what she promised. His voice was ice and iron. My heart is not yours. He turned to Amelia. His expression, God. It was everything. Hope, fear, love. It has only ever been hers. Lady Elowen's face drained of color. Gerard looked at Amelia softly, painfully. This is your moment. Choose what your heart wants. And Amelia stood frozen between the man who saved her and the man who had always held her heart. For a moment, the night held its breath. Snow drifted softly around them, the Duke rigid with fear of losing her, Gerard steady and quiet beside her, and Lady Elowen trembling with a rage she tried desperately to hide. But Amelia felt the storm rising inside her. Her heart raced, her chest tightened. Every memory, every wound, every unanswered question, every lonely night collided with the truth she had heard. He gave up everything. For me, she whispered. Gerard's gaze sharpened, worried. Amelia! But she stepped forward, toward the Duke, not touching, not deciding, not forgiving, just facing him. Why didn't you come back sooner? She asked, voice quiet but cutting. You left for a year, 12 months of silence, 12 months of me wondering what I did wrong. The Duke inhaled sharply. There were threats, rumors, political traps. I couldn't return until I was certain they could no longer use you against me. And now they can't, Elowen spat. The Duke shot her a warning look, but Amelia shook her head. No, let her speak. Let everyone speak. I have been kept in the dark long enough. Elowen smirked, emboldened. You poor thing. You really thought he left because of danger? He left because he didn't want the scandal of being tied to a mere merchant's daughter. Amelia's breath hitched, but the Duke stepped forward so fast his voice trembled. That is a lie. If anything, I wasn't worthy of her. Elowen's jaw clenched. Gerard spoke next, tone low but firm. Enough games. Amelia deserves truth. All of it. Amelia looked between them, her chest aching. Then tell me this, she whispered. Why did everyone say you were engaged while you were gone? The Duke closed his eyes for a second, as if preparing for pain. My mother arranged it. Elowen's family threatened to expose my father's debt, and your name would have been dragged through the filth. They wanted power, title, alliance. They never wanted me. Elowen scoffed. Believe whatever you wish. But Amelia blinked, because something in Elowen's voice wasn't confidence. It was fear. Why lie? Amelia asked quietly. What did you gain from pretending we were engaged? Elowen's mask slipped for just one breath, just long enough. Gerard noticed. The Duke noticed. Amelia's stomach dropped. Elowen, Gerard said slowly, what exactly have you been hiding? Lady Elowen turned on him with a glare. Stay out of this. This has nothing to do with you. Oh, but it does, Gerard murmured, because Amelia's safety depends on the truth. The Duke took a step closer, towering but calm. Elowen, what did your family agree to with Hawthorne? What did you promise in exchange for the engagement? Her lips trembled, just a little. Amelia felt the shift, sharp, cold, revealing. "Alawan," Amelia whispered, "did you know about the threat to my family?" Alawan stayed silent, and in that silence, everything clicked into place. The forged letters, the timed rumors, the pressure on the Duke's mother, the convenient engagement announcement. Gerard's voice turned icy. "You helped orchestrate it." Alawan flinched. "You and Lord Hawthorne," the Duke said quietly. "You wanted influence, control, power over the Ravenshire name." Amelia's breath shook. "You used my suffering," she whispered, "as a bargaining chip." Elowen's anger finally snapped. "Yes," she shouted. "Yes, I did, because you were in the way. You, a nobody, stole his heart before I had the chance. I deserve that engagement. I deserve that title." Snow settled silently on her hair as she trembled. "And you ruined everything simply by existing." Amelia stepped back, breath unsteady. Gerard moved closer, protective. The Duke's face was pure, controlled fury. "Elowen," he said coldly, "leave. Now. Before I drag your entire family's scheme before Parliament." Elowen's confidence shattered. She backed away, first one step, then another, before disappearing into the ballroom. Silence fell, heavy, cold, fragile. Gerard finally exhaled, turning to Amelia. "You deserved honesty. At least now you have it." Amelia hugged herself, shivering, not from the cold, but from the weight of everything unraveling at once. The Duke took a careful step toward her. "Amelia, what do you want me to do? If you want me gone, I will walk away and never trouble you again. But if you want truth, if you want me, I am here." His voice softened to a whisper. "I have always been here." Her heart twisted. Her throat tightened. This was it. The moment where the past collided with the future she hadn't dared imagine. But before she could answer, a sudden crash erupted somewhere inside the ballroom. Screams followed. Gerard stiffened. The Duke spun around sharply. Amelia's eyes widened as panic rippled through the guests. "Something's wrong," Gerard said. "Something's terribly wrong." And then the doors burst open. A guard sprinting onto the balcony. "Your Grace! It's Lord Hawthorne! He's here!" The Duke's blood ran cold. Amelia froze. Gerard reached for her instinctively, and the night shifted into danger. The icy gust from the open balcony whipped through the terrace doors, carrying with it the scent of fear and gunpowder. Lord Hawthorne's presence in the ballroom was no longer a rumor. He had come, and his intentions were clear. The Duke of Ravenshire moved instinctively, placing himself between Amelia and the threat. His jaw was set, eyes blazing with a dark, unwavering resolve. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his voice low but carrying the weight of authority. Amelia's heart pounded, not from the chill in the night air, but from the raw intensity radiating from him. Gerard flanked her side, alert, but even he seemed to recognize that no ordinary protection could match the Duke's presence. Lord Hawthorne stormed into the open space, entourage in tow. His eyes glinted with malice, and his smile was sharp, cruel. "Ah, Amelia Ravenshire," he sneered. "I see you found a new admirer. How quaint. But don't think this changes anything. You belong to my plans." Amelia swallowed hard, frozen, while every whispered insult, every threat from the past year, surged to the forefront of her mind. The Duke's hand brushed hers, not gently, not for ceremony, but with an unspoken command. "Trust me." He stepped forward, closing the distance between himself and Hawthorne, his voice cutting through the chaos like steel. "Leave, now, or I assure you the consequences will ruin you more thoroughly than any rumor ever could." Hawthorne laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You think your title scares me? I will see you disgraced and her reduced to nothing." "Not tonight," the Duke said, voice calm, deadly controlled. Then, almost imperceptibly, he drew Amelia closer to him, shielding her in a protective arc. Time seemed to slow. Amelia could feel his pulse through the fabric of his coat, the steady, grounding heartbeat that mirrored her own. Her breath hitched. Her chest rose and fell as if in rhythm with him, as if the world outside their bubble no longer mattered. And then, the Duke did something that made the crowd gasp, made Gerard and the guards alike pause. He pressed his lips to Amelia's, firmly, decisively, and not with the hesitation of uncertainty. The kiss was electrifying, a silent vow of protection, of truth, of undeniable passion. For Amelia, it shattered every chain of fear and doubt. She pressed herself closer, heart clinging to his strength, to his unwavering presence. The warmth of the kiss burned away the cold shadows of abandonment, of whispered lies, of nights spent alone. When they finally parted, the Duke's forehead rested against hers. His voice was almost a whisper, but it carried across the distance of the terrace. Amelia, you are mine, not through obligation, not through manipulation, but because you are the only woman worthy of standing beside me. Tears, long withheld, slid freely down her cheeks, but they were no longer tears of sorrow. They were of liberation, of acknowledgement, of a life finally claimed by her own heart. Amelia lifted her chin, eyes shining with fierce determination. "And I am yours," she breathed, "if you will have me." The Duke's hand tightened over hers. "Always," he promised. Below, the guests watched in awe and disbelief. Murmurs rippled through the ballroom, but none dared interrupt the undeniable truth unfolding on the terrace. The woman once disregarded, once hidden in shadows of her sister's triumphs, now stood at the center of her destiny, powerful, loved, and free. Lord Hawthorne, seeing the undeniable bond in the Duke's absolute authority, faltered. His plan unraveling, he was swiftly escorted from the estate by the guards, powerless and humiliated. Amelia felt the night wrap around her like a silken cloak, no longer cold, no longer lonely. The Duke drew her closer once more, his lips brushing her temple in a gentle, possessive caress. "Your tears," he murmured, voice low, "are no longer yours to hide. They are precious because they mark the end of one life and the beginning of another." Her heart swelled. The walls of her past, of neglect, of fear, of doubt, crumbled, leaving only warmth, strength, and the promise of love. That night, under the soft glow of moonlight, in the presence of a man who had chosen her against the odds, Amelia Ravensher finally understood. She was no longer merely a shadow, she was a woman of her own fate, and it had just begun. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.